Welcome to the Archive Network. I'm Aurelius, and with me as always, Malik. We curate the Exploration Archive. Today we open a new file. René-Robert de La Salle. Malik, you've had this one on your desk for a while. In a small French town, the air buzzes with possibility. A young man studies maps, his mind racing with dreams of uncharted lands and endless horizons. That young man is René-Robert Cavalier, Sieur de La Salle. His story begins in Rouen in 1643, a place where ambition and reality weave together, shaping the course of his destiny. It's a time when the world feels ripe for exploration, and every corner of the map beckons with the promise of adventure.
But let's not romanticize the situation. La Salle wasn't just dreaming. He was calculating every move. His ambitions were grounded in the harsh realities of trade and shifting power dynamics. Rouen might have faded away in his mind, but the stakes were very real. People's lives and livelihoods hung in the balance. He wasn't just a dreamer. He was a strategist, weighing risks and rewards, and always looking ahead, aware that every decision could alter the course of history for many.
He left France with a vision to transform the vast rivers of North America into a network of trade and power. Rouen's damp streets were replaced by the expansive potential of the Great Lakes. La Salle understood that controlling these waterways would shape the continent's future. He didn't just see rivers. He saw highways of commerce.
Highways of commerce? More like paths of conflict. La Salle's ambitious plans meant he had to navigate complex relationships with indigenous communities and deal with endless bureaucratic hurdles. These weren't just strategic moves. They were delicate dances of diplomacy. It's not enough to want something. Understanding the landscape and its people is so crucial. Every decision had real human costs. It's easy to forget that behind every trade route, there were lives impacted, stories untold, and cultures at stake.
By 1673, La Salle had already established Fort Frontenac. But this wasn't just any fort. It was a bold statement of intent and ambition. It served as a crucial link, connecting the scattered outposts of New France into a cohesive network under his command. We see this time and again in history. Empires consolidate their power by creating connections. Fort Frontenac was a strategic maneuver, a way to assert dominance and secure control over the vast territories beyond.
Aurelius, I think that's a really narrow view of his actions. Fort Frontenac was about more than just consolidation. It was an attempt to dominate the region. The indigenous nations weren't just obstacles to get around. They were vital allies or potential adversaries. La Salle needed to engage with them, to understand their needs and motivations. It was about more than conquest. It was about relationships that could shape the future of everyone involved.
You're absolutely right about the necessity of alliances. La Salle was a master strategist, carefully crafting plans and seeking out investors among fur traders and influential patrons. His primary focus was on dominating the rivers, which were the lifeblood of trade. While he masked his ambitions in the language of exploration and discovery, we can see that profit and control were really at the heart of his endeavor. He knew that to expand his influence, he had to play the game skillfully.
Cloaked ambitions? That's a polite way to put it. For La Salle and many like him, these ventures weren't really about discovery. They were about exploitation. He had to charm the crown with grand promises of wealth and glory. But let's be real, this wasn't just exploration. It was a calculated grab for resources and power, often at the expense of countless lives. The human cost was immense, and those stories are often left in the shadows.
The preparations were noisy, a cacophony of commerce. Carts creaked under the weight of trade goods, while heated disputes over resources filled the air. The stakes were high, and this chaos was essential to La Salle's grand vision. He moved through the throng, mediating conflicts, calculating rations, and managing supplies with a precision that would make a clockmaker proud. In the midst of this turmoil, we see how ambition and order can coexist, shaping the future of empires.
Calculating rations is one thing, but sustaining a settlement is a whole different ballgame. There's a darker side to his plans, one that hinges on political maneuvering. The French crown had limited resources, and La Salle's grand ambitions needed more than just a well-crafted plan. He was facing desperate circumstances and, honestly, he needed a miracle to pull it all off. Lives depended on his success, and the weight of that responsibility was enormous.
True? Why? His expedition shifted dramatically, evolving from a deeply personal quest into a methodical colonization effort. As the winter thawed, the urgency of La Salle's preparations grew more intense. Sails were unfurled, canoes were meticulously crafted, and the air buzzed with anticipation. The river, with its promise of new territories, seemed to call out to him. La Salle, fueled by ambition and vision, was more than ready for the challenges that lay ahead.
But that excitement masked a darker reality. Navigating those supply lines could prove lethal. La Salle faced uncertainty and danger at every turn, with storms and hostile encounters lurking around every corner. The promise of adventure came at a heavy cost, one that many of his crew wouldn't survive. Every decision weighed on him, knowing that this path was treacherous. It wasn't just a glorious march. It was a struggle for survival, and the stakes felt all too real.
The current swept them into uncharted territory, a place where few dared to tread. La Salle would step boldly into the unknown. What awaited him was far beyond what any ledger could record or predict. We find ourselves at the intersection of ambition and reality, a place where dreams often clash with the harshness of nature. Each decision would ripple forward, shaping not just his journey but the very fate of those who followed in his wake.
That's where we leave it for now. Part 1 of 5. René-Robert de La Salle is far from done. If you're new here, we're Aurelius and Malik, curators of the Exploration Archive, part of the Archive Network. Part 2 drops soon.